session on the transformative role of generative AI in the future of BPO by Mr. Steve Ernest, Senior VP India International Operations at Startek. Can we have a big round of applause for Mr. Steve? Steve is an innovative and strategic senior vice president with over 24 years of experience managing high-touch consumer businesses across multiple locations. He has successfully navigated businesses through transitions in competitive market, implementing long-term strategic objectives for companies like Expedia, HireRight, AT&T, and Amazon. Steve is a result-driven leader with expertise in business process outsourcing and customer service operations. He excels in data analysis to optimize service efficiency and has proven track record in business process mapping, re-engineering, and cost-effective outsourcing solutions. Steve has consistently influenced profitability, meeting client expectation, and delivering value across industries. Over to you, sir.
That was a huge introduction. I wish my boss was sitting here, especially appraisal time. I mean, he needed to hear what she was saying about me. I mean, these are a lot of things that we put up on our profiles and stuff like that. But yeah, so I've spent about 25 years close to 25 years in the space, and I've seen the space evolve. And first up front, I'd just like to thank Gain Skills for having me up here. I'd like to thank everyone that's put this together, partners, sponsors, everyone that's put this together. And I think it's a great forum to come and discuss or talk about or get an idea about some of the things that's happening in the space. And I've got about 10, 15, 20 minutes, give or take, 17 minutes. That's what my clock is telling me. I don't think I'm going to even be able to scratch the surface of what this whole space actually is here to cover. But I'll try and touch some of the top points. I'll just try and touch some of the high aspects of Gen AI and some of the things that we're using from an industry perspective. So very recently, or maybe not so recently, maybe a few years back, we were having lunch at at my place, and I had my 4-year-old nephew sitting with me, and we had a good lunch. We're sitting down and we're just chatting, very relaxed. And then after lunch, it was summertime, so some nicely peeled watermelon came onto the table, and all of us were trying to get a little bit of watermelon. And my 4-year-old nephew started eating the watermelon, and I noticed while he was eating the watermelon, he was also eating some of the seeds. So I told him, hey, listen, you got to be careful you don't eat the seeds, because if you eat the seeds, you're going to have a watermelon tree grow out from your stomach. And he looked at me very confused, and he looked at me very irritated, and he said, looks like they didn't teach you anything in school, or they didn't teach you anything in college, because it can't grow without any sunlight. So on that note, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to take you through, some of the things. I mean, if a 4-year-old can think so smartly, I'm going to take you through some of the things that the human minds have put together that's been, phenomenal. What is Gen AI? So Forrester defines Gen AI as a set of technologies and techniques that leverage massive corpuses of data, including large language models, to generate new content. Inputs may be natural language prompts or other non-code and non-traditional inputs. We've heard this over and over again, that data is the new currency. We've heard this over and over again, that data is the new oil that runs everything that exists. As a matter of fact, I think from an industry perspective also, we're just scratching the surface in terms of the potential of where this entire thing can actually lead. Jeff Bezos says this is the beginning of the golden age of automation and technology, and rightly so. I've got a couple of statistics just to give you a sense in terms of where this entire thing is leading, right? Right now, as we speak, the industry is worth about 150 billion. In about 5 to 6 years, it's expected to grow to about 1.3 to 1.5 trillion. Just shows the potential of what's there. You've got about 20 to 25 billion worth of funding in this Gen AI space, and the reason why we're sitting here is because people are interested. The reason why we have conferences across the globe is because people are interested. Nobody puts in money into something that's not making sense, but it does make a lot of sense, and that's the reason why people are putting money into it. 70% of transition in terms of, bots taking over. I was reading something which said 8.5 billion bots are currently operational handling customer interactions. So when you look at 8.5 billion bots currently in operation handling customer experience, the first question that comes to mind is, what's going to happen with all of the jobs that exist? And I think that's the big question on everyone's mind, right? So while there's 8.5 billion bots doing their work, it is also estimated that it's going to contribute to an impact of 85 million jobs. 85 million jobs are going to be lost. However, there's going to be a creation of additional jobs. The jobs that are going to be created is going to go up to 97 million, which means there's going to be 12 million additional jobs that are available. 12 million additional jobs. So the point is, and I read something, someone said, AI or technology is not going to take your jobs away, but a person that uses AI is who's going to take your job away. And that's what you got to be careful about, right? The point is there's so much of data available. And one of the things that concerned me the most was we've got so much of data available. All of us have got digital imprints, right? You're on your phone, you're on your laptop, tabs, whatever it is. There's a ton of digital information that's there. As a matter of fact, I think estimates for 2024 says that 407 million terabytes of data is generated every single day. 407 million terabytes of data. All of you contribute to it. For example, every minute, 2 million chats are shared on Snapchat. 45,000 Uber rides are booked in a minute, right? You've got about 13 songs added on Spotify every minute. You've got about 4.5 million tweets that kick in every minute. So that's the amount of data that's getting generated. Now, what do you do with so much of data? What do you do with so much of information? If you can't do anything with that information, it's just a waste of space. And I think that's where Gen AI actually comes in and makes sense of the entire thing. That's where it comes in and kind of gives you perspective in terms of what you can do with the data. And that's what I want to spend very, very little time kind of talking about in a nutshell. So a couple of things that we do from a Gen AI perspective where the industry is concerned, right? The two things that clients are very, very concerned about, one is reducing customer effort. The second is improving agent efficiency. Now, when we talk about reducing customer effort, right, nobody wants a customer to spend too much of time trying to resolve an issue. As a matter of fact, we've done enough and more studies over a period of time that shows there is a direct correlation between a negative customer experience and an increased handling time. For example, the more time it takes for a customer to resolve their concern, the more dissatisfied they are. And the more dissatisfied they are, there's a good chance they're going to look for someone else. So the point is, if you can reduce customer effort, and that's what a lot of large companies are doing, if you can reduce customer effort, there is a good chance that you're not going to lose that customer because it's a lot cheaper to retain a customer than acquire a new customer. So that's what companies want to do. They want to retain customers that exist. So a couple of things that people do is the chatbots and the virtual assistants. All of you, especially with the food tech industry picking up pace in the last couple of years, especially since COVID, when it kind of started, and I'll quote examples like the Swiggies and Zomatos because they dominate the space largely. When they started, right? If you had a particular issue, you probably reach out to Swiggy, you probably reach out to Zomato, whoever it is, and you tell them, hey, I have an issue, an agent is trying to resolve it for you, they're trying to verify if it makes sense, spillage, wastage, order did not come, whatever it is, and then by the time he figures it out, he decides whether I pay you or I don't. Today, they've got a bot, you just go there, you put a picture up, immediately it just clears out completely, right? That's the point. Reducing customer effort means it makes it easy for me to transact. How difficult it is for you to find a contact information or detail where Amazon is concerned, right? You need to go right to the bottom of their website or their channel to find customer experience. And even that goes into a bot and stuff like that because what they're trying to do is get people to get a resolution on the page itself, on the app itself without spending too much of time. What are all of these companies focusing on? How do you reduce customer effort? And that's what they're looking at. The other aspect is, reducing agent effort. The industry has evolved so much. Today, in the past, clients would, sign up with a particular provider because they wanted customer service, technical service, whatever it is. But then it becomes a cost center because you're paying for something and not necessarily getting revenue out of it, right? Nobody wants to have a cost center which is not generating revenue. So today, clients are looking at what is it that I can do to make this a profit center instead of a cost center. So a couple of things you do. One is you reduce cost. You improve efficiencies. You improve, handling times. You improve, your service levels. You improve abandon rates. You look at, multiple things that can help improve it. What's also happening is there's so much of data available. There are tools that are working on the back end that kind of tells me. So for example, if I'm servicing someone from a tech space, someone is telling me that, hey, you know what? If I can propose this particular product to this guy or this lady that's calling me, there's a good chance they may be interested. Direct marketing happens when you're trying to resolve. So what happens is there's a good chance they're going to buy into it. Net, you become a profit center. You're no more a cost center because no one has time and space for a cost center. How is that possible? Because Gen AI and technology that we have is able to pull all of this data together, enabling us to be able to, make curated offers to the customer, and that's what's actually helping the cause overall. Now, moving into, Gen AI and the future of it, especially, and again, ladies and gentlemen, I'm telling you, I'm not even scratching the surface of what's there. We're not doing justice to it in 15 minutes, right? Now, you can hear a lot of what everyone says throughout the day, and it's still not going to do justice to, the amount the space has kind of, gotten into. So the future of Gen AI in our space, so to speak. One is, voice interactions, and I spoke about it. There are about 8.5 billion bots, currently in operation doing what it's supposed to be doing. Data integration, and I gave you an example of data integration, pulling customer data, right? Pulling customer data to give you perspective in terms of the way I approach customer. For example, there's a top computer company, right, that we work with. We do all of their analytics, and I've got a team that sits and figures out what kind of pricing a vendor has, what kind of pricing a dealer has, why is the pricing a little higher, lower, and what's the best curated price I can put together, right? So if you look at it, when you say BPO, usually you have a headset as a picture that reflects. It's no more that, ladies and gentlemen. We are far, far, far away from that space. If you've not been in the space in the last few years, believe me, it's evolved to such an extent you wouldn't even imagine, right? So the landscape has changed. And some of the technologies that are used, especially from a Gen AI perspective, you've got the large language models, and a few other models which I'll very, very quickly cover before, I kind of give you some examples in terms of, what companies are doing to use some of this. And I'm not going to go into, the models per se into space because one is, I don't think I'm really an expert to get into it, and we've got other experts to do that, and more importantly, it's too large for us to cover in the next few minutes. So some of the natural processing, language processing, abilities or technologies that are available. One is you've got speech recognition, sentiment analysis. Sentiment analysis is something that gets used significantly. As a matter of fact, you want to know as to, what the clients are feeling, what products I've got to put up. You want to know as to, what I need to show out there, etc. As a matter of fact, I think even, politicians use sentiment analysis to derive, what kind of election campaign they've got to build together, what kind of manifesto they've got to pull together. So, it gives us a sense. Machine translation, name entity recognition. Name entity recognition. For example, Surya is leading the T20 India cricket team. You can't have it reflect Sun is leading the T20 India cricket team. This is a very raw example, but it's important for the right name to be recognized. You've got summarization. Summarization, I think, if you ask me, I think is the most helpful tool one can get. I have a very, very short attention span. So for me, reading long scripts, reading long, papers makes it very difficult. All I got to do is just go to Google, and I love the way it just says Gen AI is generating something, and you get a very high or a quick summary, which helps me understand what I need to understand, right? So summarization has improved significantly after some of these tools have come into place. Part of speech tagging. Now you've got keywords that get used, and because the keywords get used, it kind of helps to a large extent identify, and especially when you're doing contracts and stuff like that, it becomes extremely helpful. Lexical analysis and then word sense disambiguation. But I'm not going to get into the depth of it. I'm just going to move into the next slide, which talks about, some of the examples or some of the things that, we've seen companies do. The slide is not moving. Sorry, just give us a quick second. All right, I've got the next slide up. Just a very quick sense of some of the case studies I've got. For example, you've got, Tesla. And Tesla, they've got the autopilot cars. And how are they able to put autopilot cars on the road? It's because they're using Gen AI technology. Tons of data input that's coming in, which is giving them a sense in terms of, the direction that they've got to use. And all sorts of stuff that they need to use from the perspective to give them a heads up, right? As a matter of fact, some analysis say that 1 in 10 cars in the next, by 2030, 1 in 10 cars is going to be an autopilot car. I personally believe that when you can get autopilot cars in India, Gen AI would have finally arrived. Because I think that's a big opportunity that it needs to really, really get over with, right? Amazon, for that matter. Amazon is using a lot of technology. If you're in the retail space, you know how much of, how expensive it becomes to create an inventory that, just storing inventory for no reason, right? So they use Gen AI, makes it so much more easy because they're getting perspective from getting an idea with respect to what inventory, what's selling, what they should keep on their shelves. You can be getting a product, coming all the way from the north to the south. How does it come in 8 hours? It's not that, there's a super service that's kicking in. The inventory management keeps those products, which gives you what it gives you, right? So Amazon is using it significantly, and, it's showing a lot of goodness in terms of their overall system. Adobe, they've got Adobe Firefly. You can do anything. Before you needed to go to a particular designer to get a graphic or an art done, right? Today you don't need to do that. All you got to do is there are tons of tools you can go and you can put 100 things together and you can make it all happen. But there's also I was kind of watching this documentary and since the border Gavaskar Trophy is happening in Australia, I think there's a lot of interest around it. So I was watching a documentary about, the way Australia has been using a lot of this technology. And if you look at it, I think in 2019, they were playing in Yorkshire. And when they were playing in Yorkshire, they looked at a lot of data, they looked at a lot of inputs, and they got insight that if they start pitching the ball about, the minute I started speaking cricket, everyone started looking at me with more interest. It just goes to show the interest in the room. So they figured out the minute you start pitching the ball about 6 feet from the wicket, the batsman becomes, a little tentative. They started doing that. The result, England was all out for 67. This was a test that happened in Yorkshire in 2019. England was all out for 2007. All out for 67. It's a different story that England won the game by 1 wicket. They, got back what they had to get. The point is, Australia was using a lot of this technology. You look at the recent IPL auction bidding that was happening. The amount of statistics they have, the amount of intelligence they have, sports is using it. So the point is, every sphere is using this amount of technology because when you've got data, and if you can get data to give you informed decisions, why not take advantage of it? Because the point is this: if you don't use it, you will be left behind. However, with all this happening, and I spoke about Adobe Firefly. With all this happening, you got to also be careful of some of the things that get used negatively. For example, we've got a lot of the deep fakes that are kicking in. A lot of the scams that are kicking in because of these deep fakes, etc. People are getting manipulated. And very quickly, I want to talk about some of the guardrails we need to be cautious about when it comes to Gen AI. One is appropriateness guardrails. Need to be in place to make sure that we're checking the content is not toxic, not harmful, not biased. I was reading an article last week. This guy kind of went online and he was trying to figure out. He was asking the platform to help him make a presentation, and the response he got was, "Are you stupid? Are you a fool? You should go and kill yourself." The point is, something like that can be very, very dangerous for someone that's going through an emotional meltdown. You see what I'm saying? So the point is we've got to make sure that, the information, we put these guardrails to give us some perspective. The next is hallucination guardrails ensure that AI-generated content does not contain information that's factually wrong or misleading. You have, Thomas Edison talking about Gen AI on, those memes and stuff like that. He didn't even know this was coming in. But, the point is you can put data, you can manipulate, and we've got to be very careful that, Gen AI is not used to create, misleading information. Regulatory compliance. Regulatory compliance was huge in the West, right? As a matter of fact, it's picked up significantly in India. You've got to make sure that you are regulatory compliant. If not, it can lead to a lot of issues that can, impact you. Alignment guardrails, ensuring that generated content aligns with user expectations and doesn't drift away from its main purpose, right? And then finally, the validation guardrails. You can put stuff up, but make sure it is validated, because if you're not validating it, there is a chance that, it's going to lead to, other impacts. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm at the end of my time, but, I was really racing with these slides, but you're going to get a lot of insights coming in through the day, and this is the place to be. And I'm just going to quote back what I said earlier, right? Technology, automation, all of these things are not going to take away jobs. It's people that don't use them are the ones that are going to get impacted. People that use them, there's significant amount of potential. The space is growing significantly. And my advice is tap in and get as much as you can, because, I think I think this space alone is going to drive up the global GDP to by about 7 trillion. That shows how big the space is. So on that note, thank you very much for your time.
I'd like to call upon stage Mr. Gurbans Chatwal, VP Innovation and Intelligent Automation, Fiserv, to do the honors.